What's going on, guys? So most of you will not know, I'm actually a certified EMT. I've been an EMT for about 7 years now. I haven't really been riding the ambulance in the past 3, but 3 years prior to that, I rode the ambulance quite often, and I've seen my fair share of crazy things. And seeing all these crazy things has always kept me prepared. I always try to carry whenever I'm at work, I do always carry a first aid kit on me. I always keep a fairly well-stocked trauma kit in my truck. I keep a good trauma kit inside the house, so I try to stay prepared. And when I say trauma kit, I'm not talking about a small first aid kit that you buy from the store. I mean, sure, they do have some decent trauma kits, but for the most part, when you buy a first aid kit, they carry some Band-Aids, maybe some thin 4x4s. Those kits really aren't designed for heavy trauma. So if you are dealing with a job or you're trying to set up a good heavy trauma first aid kit, I definitely recommend you doing some research, maybe taking a first aid class. This video is not about how to stock your first aid kit. So basically what this video is about, I work for a highway department, and on that highway department, I'm on the tree crew. So we are constantly dealing with chainsaws, we're dealing with falling trees, dead trees, limbs falling, heavy equipment, we're dealing with traffic. So the chances of something traumatic happening to myself or one of my coworkers is definitely elevated compared to somebody who, say, works at a desk. So as I mentioned earlier, I believe I do carry a small first aid kit in my lunchbox, but lately I've been thinking, if someone were to nick themselves with a chainsaw and they needed some pressure put on that right away, it would take me some time to rush to the truck, grab my first aid kit, and then get to work. So lately, I've been carrying a little glove pouch on me so that way I can protect myself if one of my coworkers were to get injured. But also, today I'm going to build something to keep on my chainsaw chaps. So what I want to put on my chainsaw chaps is, one, an Israeli bandage. If you never heard of an Israeli bandage, they are manufactured in Israel, and basically it's a compression dressing. So basically there's a big pad, and attached to that pad is basically a roll of gauze. So you put the padding on the wound, this is a 6-inch by the way, and then you wrap that roll of gauze. If you nick an artery, then obviously you're going to wrap that pretty tight. In addition to this, on my belt, I want to carry a trauma shear, and also it would be best if I carried a tourniquet, but if I really like to buy a cat tourniquet, and that's definitely going to be something I'm investing in the future. But for now, I think I'm just going to throw a cravat in there, and with a cravat you can turn that into a makeshift tourniquet. So I definitely feel it's important that I carry this on my belt, so if something were to happen, I'm ready to go. So I couldn't find a decent case or pouch for my belt that I liked on Amazon, so I'm just going to make my own, and I'm going to show you how to do this. This is pretty simple. So I'm a volunteer firefighter, and constantly we're retiring hose. So this is some, I think this is 3-inch double jacketed fire hose, which I've removed one layer. This is the inner layer because it's cleaner. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rivet the bottom here, and this is going to turn this into a pouch. And then on the back, I'm going to rivet on a belt loop, so that way I can keep this right on my chaps. And then finally I'm going to add a button to the top so this just folds over and this can stay off to my side. Now the great thing about putting it on my chainsaw chaps is I always keep them in the truck, and I always have them on when I'm cutting or when we're ever doing any type of cutting at work, so that way it's always right here, it's easy to access. So it's just a smart thing to have on my person for my line of work. So that's enough yabbering, let me get to work on this thing. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do with this fire hose is really for cosmetic purposes. So I have a quick square, I'm going to take a Sharpie and I'm going to draw a line on the bottom here. And that way when I go to put my rivets in, all the rivets will be in a straight line. I'm going to put 2 here and 2 here, so there's going to be a grand total of 4 on the bottom here. Okay, so I've used the inch markings on this square, and I've made a mark for each rivet, and in between each rivet is going to be about 1 inch and 1/8. So now what I'm going to do is, you want to take a piece of wood, preferably a softwood such as pine, and basically you're going to take a punch. You're going to put it over where you marked your hole, grab a hammer, drive it down, pull it out, and then I like to take the punch and spin it a little bit and push forward. That way when you remove the punch, the hole kind of stays open like that. Hopefully you can see that. Okay, So I'm going to go down and open up all these holes now. Okay, so now we're going to get the rivets ready. These are what the rivets look like when they come packaged to you. If you're interested in purchasing them, I'll leave a link in the description below. But basically, you have two pieces. You have a cap, and then I guess you could call this the rod or whatever you want to call it. So basically what happens is when you hammer down on this rivet, this piece splits, it kind of mushrooms, and it locks into the cap right here. So when you try to pull these apart, because this piece becomes mushroomed in the cap, then they will not pull apart. So the issue with them as they stand is the rod part is too long. If we tried to hammer this rivet down right now, it would offset and it just wouldn't lock on there very good. So what you need to do is you need to take a pair of clippers. It's a good idea to wear safety glasses for this. And basically what I'm going to do is cut it a little bit more than half. Watch your eyes. Okay, just like so. So that's cut in half. Next thing I'm going to do is take a pair of pliers, making sure I'm in camera here, and I'm going to open this back up. Trying to keep it as round as possible because this is going to help us later. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my center punch, I'm going to put it inside here, just spin it and just try and make sure that I've reopened this opening and that it's pretty round. So that way when we put this cap, this end cap back on, it just fits on like so. And that's important. That's how it should look. So let me get these other three ready to go and then we'll hammer these on. Okay, so I have all these rivets cut. Now I'm going to get ready to set these. So these holes may have closed up a little bit, so all you got to do is take your center punch and just twist these back in here, and then these rivets should just drop right in the hole. You want to make sure that they go completely through the other side without getting bound up on any fibers. And if it doesn't go through, then just take it out, your center punch, force it in there a little bit. From here we can carefully turn this over. You just want to push down to make sure that the fire hose settles down. And from here, pretty simple, we take our end caps and just set these on here. Make sure they go down, sit on there evenly. Which I'm not having a problem so far, which is a good thing. And from here, it's pretty simple. All you do is take a hammer, and I like to start with gentle blows. Make sure you're on camera here. So I like to start with gentle blows. Maybe go around in a circle a little bit. And then you just send it home, flatten it out. Not too much force, but enough to set it. Circles. And flatten it out. Those rivets are set. They are not going anywhere. Looks good. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get my Israeli bandage and my trauma shears. I'm going to put it inside my pouch and I'm going to determine where I want the hinge to be. Which I'm thinking right about there. That fits pretty good. Goes down to the bottom. I'm happy with that. Deciding which way I want it to fold. I think I kind of want it to fold that way because this is kind of like the finished side of the rivets and they look a little bit better than the unfinished side. So what I'm going to do, here's my Sharpie. I'm going to take my Sharpie, I'm just going to make a mark on the side here where I want that fold to be. Okay, so I've determined where I want this fold to be. Now what I need to do is I need to cut out this section The issue with keeping it like this is when I open this up and say I do need to access it, and I got to reach down in here kind of far to grab the thing. So if I cut out right here, it's going to be easier to access it. Which, if you don't understand, it should make sense in a second or two here after I cut this out. Just like that. So, as I mentioned a minute ago, you need to access this real quick. When you open up this pouch, it's going to be right here. So now if you want, you can keep it square like this, but I'm going to take off some of the triangular edges on the side here because I feel like they could get caught up. So now I'm going to snip this out and just kind of make sure that they're even. May need to make a couple cuts to get them perfectly even. Okay, so now what I'm working on creating is the belt loop. And what I've done is I've cut out this piece from yet another piece of recycled fire hose. This is 5-inch supply line, and it failed testing, which I think every year this hose has to get tested, pressure tested. So I just cut out this little piece, and this is going to sit on here like so. I've already measured it in accordance to make sure that it's going to fit the thickness of the belt on my chaps. And from here, I just need to put this on my chaps and determine what height I want this at. And then from there, I'm going to punch through here, through this piece of fire hose into the piece of fire hose, and then set some rivets, and then we should be on our way. Okay, so the belt loop is done. That should fit on there nice and snug, which is exactly what I want. I don't want this sliding around on the belt too much. But the final thing I need to do is figure out where I want to put my buttons. So I'm going to put my first aid supplies back in here, bend this over, try and identify where I want to have a button, because I want everything in here snug, which I'm thinking it's going to want to sit right about there. So let me punch this out and I will show you how to install a button. So I'm going to put this die back here. I'm going to get the finished part of the button, insert it through this hole like so. I'm going to put this finished part in the die here. Just make sure that's sitting in there good. I'm going to take my male end of the button, have that sit down flat. I'm going to put my die on here like so. I'm trying not to block the camera view, but I may have to. It's the best I'm going to do for you guys. So, light taps. I'm going to take a quick peek. Everything's going down evenly. And that's what you want. Still looking good. I don't know if you can see that, but it's kind of mushrooming over evenly. That is exactly what you want. Biggest key is hammering straight down and making sure that you're lined up good. That is on there nice and tight, and I am happy with that. Now for the other side, I need to find my Sharpie. I need to clean off my workbench is what I really need to do, but I'm going to fold that over, make sure it's going right down the center, which that looks about centered. I'm going to make a mark of where I need to drive my center punch. I'm going to check that one more time, and that looks perfect. So I'm going to take these items out of the pouch now, put a block of wood inside, and right on that mark, drive my center punch through, just like so. Take out my piece of wood. Now you want something hard, so I have a piece of steel I'm going to put back here. I'm going to take this backside rivet, come from the backside of this hole, and try and pop this thing through. There we go. Like so. Let me zoom in. And you're going to take your setting tool. Oh, excuse me, you got to put the female side on first. like so. Take your setting tool, put it right down the center. Make sure it's straight, perpendicular. Light taps, check how things are going. Looks like everything's mushrooming good. Looking good. Looking good. Good. And now I'm driving it home. It's going to be on there nice and snug. Take my piece of steel out the back here. Now we can snap these two buttons together. Which that's a nice tight fit. Perfect. So here's the final thing I'm going to do here, which this is completely optional. But because this case was already white, I'm going to take some blue painter's tape. Try and come straight down the center here. Want this to line up with these rivets. So my idea was to paint this thing in red. The only thing I have is kind of like this fluorescent pinkish red. Which we'll have to make do. I'm going to spray some of this on here. That's a little bit bright for my taste, so now let's take some flat black and see if we can darken this up a little bit. We should have a nice white stripe in here now. Perfect. That's all I have. If you guys like this video, I'd appreciate a thumbs up and subscribe for more.